Log on, tune in, find out. Another good idea from Cambridge.
Good evening, everybody. So, it's been said we spun out of Cambridge Consultants, 9 of us. We raised $85 million and we floated on the London Stock Exchange some 5 years after floating. And the message, I think, from this slide is that actually Cambridge is a great place to found, to grow a company and to raise money along the way. CSR, shortly after flotation, employed something like 1,000 people around the world. And so that was in some short 5 years, raising $85 million, floating, and employing 1,000 people. And along that way, there were many people, competition certainly, but others who said, what, you want to found a semiconductor company and you want to do it in Cambridge? You could perhaps do it in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but Cambridge, UK, don't believe it. So really, you have to believe in what you're doing and you have to ignore what other people say if you really and your team believe in what you're doing. So that's what we did in CSR. And what it was, I won't talk a lot about the technology, but actually producing a single piece of silicon. As you know, we're the Bluetooth market leader, and now in many other segments, Wi-Fi, GPS, and others. But producing a single piece of silicon, putting the radio on the chip, putting a processor there, putting software, of course, for the processor, and the analog, the digits, all on one piece of silicon, at the time was considered not possible. And I remember talking when we were pitching to customers, in fact, in America, in a lecture theatre like this, not quite so many people, but certainly the theatre was as big, and saying that we're going to do single chip silicon at 2.4 gigahertz. I heard a voice at the back saying, I bet you won't be able to do it. And all the big competition that we were, I won't mention their names, but we were ranged against, you can think of the names of the big semiconductor companies. They said it wasn't possible. It wasn't possible at that time, maybe in 5 years' time, but what they meant was that they couldn't do it. And actually, one of the things as you can do as a small company, and as I say, we started with 9, is you can move fast, you can do things that the bigger companies can't do because of their bureaucracy, because of the inherent belief that it takes a certain amount of time to do certain things. So a single chip silicon, CSR, did that first, and we did it when many people said it wasn't possible. And coming to some of the things that Alan said, one of the reasons we could do it was because the team, James Collier, had been doing some work for clients at high frequencies, needed to model how silicon would actually work in 2.4 and above gigahertz. And this was at a time when the semiconductor companies, as a fabless semiconductor company, we're fabless, so we design chips, we use silicon foundries in order to make the chips, and we then take the chips back and we sell them to customers. So we're a product company. But to actually have your own foundry, you need something like 5 years to build it and about a couple of $1 billion to build a fab. So as a fabless company, you don't need that. But at that time, the fabless companies hadn't modeled silicon at multiple gigahertz. And when Bluetooth came along, it caught all of the large players napping. And it caught them napping because they'd all been working on GSM, on heavy telecoms chips. And this new standard, Bluetooth standard, was something they had been tracking to a certain extent. But when it came to the fore, they hadn't actually got the wherewithal. They hadn't got the programs in place. So we were able to do that quickly. So here's a message here in this slide, and that is, you probably, certainly those who are doing engineering, science, physics, business, certainly heard about business models. A company has a business model. Basically, it's how it makes money. And very broadly speaking, there are 3 business models. You can sell services, that's time for money, what we did at Cambridge Consultants. You can license intellectual property, and that's what ARM, just up the road, does very successfully. Or you can sell products, and a product, of course, could be a phone, a bicycle, a car. In our case, it's chips. And if you are going to create a global, high-volume product company, because those are the only product companies that make money. You know, you can't have a non-global company selling only to the UK market, basically because it ain't very big. So if you're a product company, select a global market and select a market with many segments. And as you see there, you know, the sort of segments that Bluetooth goes into, from cellular through to automotive and consumer. There's a lot of chips there, but not only hundreds of millions, but billions of chips, and CSR is still the market leader. So how did we do it? And indeed, why can you do it? Role models are important, and one of the things that we noticed when we were at Cambridge Consultants, was that ARM had started some 6 or 7 years before we started. And we knew some of the ARM people. We saw what they'd done. They'd raised money. Latterly, they indeed floated, but they were creating great success. And you know, those guys were very similar to us. They hadn't done anything that we didn't believe we were capable of doing. So they were a role model for us. I won't go all through these. Choosing the right business model there is very important. And raising sufficient capital. We raised $85 million. It was necessary to become a successful company, to float. When we first raised the money, it was thought that maybe for a fabless semiconductor company, you needed to raise something like 20, 30, maybe $40 million. We raised twice that. In fact, if you say that you're going to be a global, high-volume, successful, fabless semiconductor company now, you probably need to raise more than 100 million, maybe 120, 150 million dollars. So it's a big game. But as we raised the money, the value of the company increased, so the dilution was not bad at all, actually. And I often see business plans that say a lot about the exit. You don't need to worry about the exit. If you have a successful company, the exit will take care of itself. Plan a good company with revenue quickly, if possible, and a growth trajectory, and the exit will take care of itself. And key bottom line there, strive for reliable execution, be very focused. You know, in order to be a successful company, you have to say no many times, because there will be many opportunities along the way, and you can't, even with 1,000 people, you can't do everything. So say no often and be very, very focused. And coming from CCL, you know, CCL was a great place to come from, and a few things there that have probably been hinted at already. Can-do approach. You know, the first approach is, if a client asks for something, is to think, okay, let's see how we can do it, rather than think of the 50 reasons why it may be not possible. So can-do approach, teamwork. We started with 3 founding directors, 6 founding staff, all from CCL. And we weren't a complete team, though. We, for example, didn't have a finance director. We didn't have a manufacturing director, but we acquired those skills. Culture of innovation in an engineering environment. CCL is, and I continue to work with companies in a variety of fields. I've never seen a company as innovative as CCL. Anything from, you've heard of the printers, but peeling prawns with high pressure water, I could go on. Clients and customers matter, of course. And at CCL, one of the things I guess you learn, because you quickly learn to, even the very junior people, to present to clients. You have to manage projects, and when you've got perhaps a little more experience under your belt, you need financial skills in order to do the costings, the bill of material costings, and indeed for the project management. And just a bottom line there for us, the managing director and chairman of CCL at the time was Paul Orton, who actually I think had been at CCL pretty much since the 60s almost, but had been in a senior position for some 20 years or so, and he was responsible for a lot of the companies, the spinning out that you saw on Shai's chart there. So we owe a lot to Paul Orton, who helped us spin out, because it was the culture, as Alan has said, to spin out. And one thing I would say for those who are thinking about doing this sort of thing is, do though be very formal. We had with CCL a sale and purchase agreement, so it was very clear, and lawyers on both sides, so it was very clear what we were taking with us when we spun out, We took some intellectual property, we cross-licensed patents and took some patents. We took goodwill, of course, and in return, CcEL took equity in our company and subsequently sold that equity and made a good amount of money doing it. So we're very grateful for Paul Orton to help us in that.